Welcome to the WalterFootball.com podcast. This is episode 375. We're talking about our Super Bowl 57 odds picks. We did this a few months ago, back in February after Super Bowl 56, but now the free agency has happened. The NFL draft has happened. A lot has changed. The odds have changed a lot, and we're going to kind of finalize our picks to win Super Bowl 57. Joined once again by Jacob Cameron from the Sporting News. Jacob, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here for this show. I always love the really early Super Bowl odds one because there are some serious values on the board here, but this one is the one that I have the most fun with because we now know what these teams are going to look like. And this is the next couple months are the last times to get that. Oh, this guy's the value pick. This team's the value pick. We got to get this now before the odds drop. So this is always one of my favorite shows. I feel like the last 2 years, at least, we've had the correct Super Bowl winner in one of our favorite categories. So let's see if we can do it again.
Yeah, let's hope so. You're right. We had some great values back in February. For example, the Chargers, I think, were 25-1. The Bengals are 20-1 or 22-1, I think. And those odds have gotten worse since. But you're right. I mean, there are some good picks here, and I bet a long shot this morning. So going to get to that in a bit. Before we get to the first set of teams, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. Visit the link in the description for the merch store. I am wearing a forest green Walter football shirt, retail value $1,000. You can get it for $20 via the link. So great savings there in this economy. All right, let's go in groups here as we usually do. These are the favorites, the five favorites to win the Super Bowl. They're all 10-1 or I guess better. So the Bills are 6.5-1, Buccaneers 7.5-1, Packers, Chiefs, and Rams are all 10-1. Do you envision betting any of these teams?
I think I might bet the Chiefs at 10-1. I'm not really sure. I'm not feeling any of these are particularly strong values right now. The Bills, I think, are going to win the Super Bowl. Like, if you had to ask me today who's going to win the Super Bowl, I'd pick the Bills. I think everyone wants to do that, though, which leads me to believe that they might not come out of the chute as good as people think. Like, they might have a target on their back. It's like, oh, this is one of the best teams in the league. And they start the season on the road against the Rams. So if they lose that game, their odds are going to drop even just a little bit from 6.5-1 to maybe 7-1 or 8-1. Another team might look really good. Like, say the Chiefs win dominant fashion, they might move ahead of the Bills or tie them at 7-1 odds or something. So I don't think I'm going to bet the Bills at this number. I think we'll get a better value. And I think the Bills have a relatively difficult start to the season. The first half of the year, their play. Let me just rattle these off. The Rams, Titans, Dolphins, Ravens, Steelers, Chiefs, Packers are their first 7 games. Couple easy ones in there, but it's not a stretch to imagine them losing twice in there, maybe even 3 times if they have a bad week or Josh Allen sprains an ankle or something. So I'm not going to be on them right now. I think the NFC teams I'm not really interested in. I like the Brady angle for the Buccaneers, but I don't think there's enough value there. The Chiefs, I would consider doing at this point just because they're 10-1. They still have star power. People are a little down on them because they don't have Tyreek Hill anymore, which I understand. But I think they have more than enough receiving options that they've added to make up for that problem at this point, to the point that I could envision them winning the AFC. And they've upgraded their defense pretty significantly. So I like them in this spot at 10-1. Every year for the last 3 years, they've been the favorite. And I feel like they haven't changed that much outside of Tyreek Hill. Their defense is better. Their offensive line is better. And maybe they'll start slow as Mahomes gains chemistry with Sky Moore and Juju and all the new guys. But I have a feeling that they're still going to be very much in this thing come January. So I'm considering the Chiefs, but I'm not really that into the other picks here.
Well, before I get to what I think, I forgot to mention that these odds are either from Bovada or Bookmaker. I took the best one out of the two, and I've always said that you should have multiple sports books if you bet, because it's not like if you try to buy a car, you don't go to one lot. You go to multiple locations. So I think it's impossible. I think it's in your best interest to shop for the best odds possible. Anyway, I agree with everything you said. I think the Bills are the most likely team to win the Super Bowl. If I had to pick one team, I think it's going to be them. But you brought up their first game. It's at the Rams, which is I think people are going to look past it for the Bills because I feel like everyone's going to bet the Bills in week one, kind of like we were talking about last week. I think they're going to be favorites eventually. They're 1 point dogs right now. All the money is going to be on the Bills. So if they lose that first game to the Rams, I think what you said is right. Like I think you might get an 8-1 somewhere, and if you do, I think I would take the Bills at 8-1. I would consider it at least. Right now 6.5-1 is not great. But yeah, my favorite team in this group is the Chiefs at 10-1. You get Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid at 10-1. And this is kind of an overreaction to the Tyreek Hill departure, like you said. But I think you made a good point in saying that their receiving depth at the top isn't as great, but their depth is a lot better. They have Juju, they have Marcus Valdes-Scantling, they have Sky Moore, they have potentially better number 2, 3, and 4 receivers going forward. So I think that might make them like better overall. Like teams can't just shut down one guy; like they're going to have to focus on a lot. So. And also, I think with the Chiefs, I think you can apply that to the Bills. What I said about the Bills, or what we said about the Bills, like the Chiefs play at Arizona and then against the Chargers in week 2. If they start 0-2, which is I guess possible, like they're going to be 13-14-1, maybe 15-1, and at that point you're going to get great value. So I would consider the Chiefs 10-1, but I think I'd wait a little bit to see if we get a better number.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat as you there because I could see them losing to the Chargers on the short week. I kind of have trouble imagining them losing to the Cardinals, but Cliff Kingsbury is so good early in the season. Like he's the weirdest coach. So that's definitely something that could come up. And another thing about the Tyreek Hill departure, people are saying like, oh, they don't have someone who can take the top off the defense anymore. That's true to an extent, but they still have Mecole Hardman. And I know he's not as good as Tyreek Hill. And everyone will be like, Mecole Hardman, he's not going to do the same thing, but he's a deep threat. So you have to at least guard the deep part of the field when he's on the field because he runs 4.3 speed. And we've seen him have some big catches in big games. I don't think he'll be consistent enough to be as good as Tyreek Hill, but they're not losing that element as much as people think. And Marquez Valdes-Scantling is fast too. He's a long strider, but he can get down the field quick. So I think that plays a role there too.
Yeah, and Juju's been with a decrepit Roethlisberger for the past couple of years, so he's going to get a better quarterback, obviously much better quarterback. We have a question here about the Packers. Andrew's asking about the Packers. He thinks they're underrated. He thinks they could trade Jordan Love, Jordan No Cookie Love, I should say, for Metcalf or Lockett. I mean, if you're talking about Jordan Love, I'd say Lockett's probably more realistic. But what do you think about the Packers at 10-1?
Yeah, I don't really like them. Look, I get why people might like the Packers. Yeah, the Devontae Adams loss, maybe it's a little bit overrated. But the problem is they've lacked receiving talent around Adams in recent years, and they didn't do much to replace him. Like Christian Watson, I like as a prospect a lot, and they drafted a couple other dudes. Romeo Doubs, I like. I think he's going to be a good pro, but they still don't have that dynamic number one threat. And I know you could say the same thing of the Chiefs, but Patrick Mahomes has shown that he needs that a little less than Rodgers. And that's not even a knock on Rodgers. I mean, good quarterbacks just need good receiving help. And I feel like the Packers group of weapons isn't as good. Like, who are we talking about as the number one target right now? Allen Lazard, probably. Right. It's like that doesn't inspire a lot of hope. He's an okay number 2 receiver. I'm fine with that. He's done well with Rodgers, but yeah, I'm not as high on them. I think their defense is going to be good. I think they're going to win their division, but they've just tripped up in the playoffs too often, including under Matt LaFleur. So I don't like trusting them at 10-1. And I haven't fully looked at their schedule early in the season, but I know they have some tough games against the Bills. They play the Buccaneers in week 3, and they have 2 divisional games to start the year. So maybe they lose at Minnesota in week 1, and they lose to the Buccaneers on the road in week 2. Rodgers hates playing in Florida. So if they start 1-2, people are going to probably be a little bit more down on them. They get a better value again. So that's how I feel about the Packers right now.
Yeah, and you're talking about the Chiefs, comparing the situation to the Packers. The Chiefs still have Travis Kelce, so like they still have a dominant tight end at least. Whereas the Packers, I mean, they get Robert Tonyan back from injury. I mean, he's not Travis Kelce. I like Tonyan, but he's not Travis Kelce. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of Packers 10-1. Plus, the run defense is still suspect, and I don't. Their offensive line it might be shaky if Bakhtiari's not healthy. I heard some reports where he's not 100% yet. So he could be by the end of the summer, but we'll see. I mean, still, it's a little disconcerting that he's not completely healthy yet. Let's get to the I forgot to answer this question. When will season previews start? Season previews will start probably in a couple weeks. I'm finishing them up. I need to finish all of them to post them because I simulate the schedule and I need to know what the records are. So it'll be soon. All right, next group. These are the teens plus 20s. Chargers are 14-1, Bengals 19-1, and the 49ers and Broncos are both 20-1. So who do you like here?
I like all of these. I actually already have money on the Chargers, Bengals, and Broncos. I think you and I both bet the Broncos, I think, at around 25-1 because we were anticipating an Aaron Rodgers trade. And, we got a little lucky the fact that Russell Wilson got moved and we didn't have to settle for a Matt Ryan trade type deal. But yeah, I think that was a good value at that time. The Chargers and Bengals, these are two dynamic teams, terrific young quarterbacks that are only getting better and are only continuing to build up their offensive lines. Like the Bengals had one weakness last year. They're my favorite team of this group. It was their offensive line. Their defense played really well. And yeah, maybe they don't repeat their full out success, but their offense is going to be borderline unstoppable because Joe Burrow is not going to be under constant pressure like he's been in years past. I mean, they're going to have 4 new starters up front, I think full time at least, because you'll have Jonah Williams at left tackle still, but then Jackson Carman, Ted Karras, Alex Kappa, and Lael Collins are all projected to start for this team. They had a bunch of, mediocre players there last year. That unit looks so much better. They're going to be an elite offense, maybe one of the best, maybe one of the 2 best in the NFL. Look at them in the Bills. I think that's going to be fun to watch. And defensively, I think they have enough talent. I wish they had done a little bit more to get a true number 2 cornerback across from Chidobe Awuzie. They're going to have to rely on Eli Apple and Daxton Hill, probably some sort of tag team rotation there with Mike Hilton as the nickel back. But they'll figure out a way to get it done. They did it last year. And they did spend a second-round pick on a corner in Cam Taylor-Britt. I always misread that he's a safety, but he's listed as a corner on their depth chart. So anyway, I like the Bengals the best. I think the Chargers, the value on the Chargers is gone a bit, but I think they're one of the best teams in the AFC. So I'd be willing to bet them at these odds, though you might be better served waiting to see if they lose to the Chiefs. In fact, maybe the best strategy is betting the loser of the week 2 Chargers versus Chiefs game to win the Super Bowl, because I think you're going to get good value on either team. So I like that concept. 49ers, big wild cards at quarterback, but they made it to the NFC Championship game with Jimmy G last year. Trey Lance makes the leap. They're in good shape. If Jimmy Garoppolo is starting this year against all odds, that'll be fine. They'll still probably make the playoffs considering the weakness of the NFC. And then the Broncos, I mean, yeah, they're in the AFC, which is tough. They're in the really tough division, but Russell Wilson just transforms that team. So you can really go with any of these teams at this point. What I would probably bet, though, is the Bengals, and I'd probably put money on the Broncos at 20-1. I feel like people are underrating them severely. Like everywhere I go, people are, these are in meetings and sporting news and some of the articles, people seem lower on Russell Wilson and the Broncos than I am. And it's like, yeah, he missed some games last year, but that's the only time in his career. And he struggled because of the finger injury. He's been an elite quarterback every other year, so I trust him to rebound.
Yeah, we're in lockstep so far. I love all these teams. I bet all these teams already. So I bet the Chargers, as I said, back in February, 25-1. I bet the Bengals, I think it was 22-1. I bet the Niners are around this number. And we, like you said, we bet the Broncos before they had Russell Wilson at 25-1. And I'm surprised this is 20-1. Like I thought once they got Russell Wilson, I'm like, okay, they're going to be 12-1. Like I feel like they should be closer to the first group. But I think you can make the case that all these teams should be closer to the first group. Maybe not the Niners because Trey Lance is a question mark, but I still like the Niners a lot. I mean, I like the roster from top to bottom. And getting to the NFC Championship with Jimmy Garoppolo is quite the feat. And if Trey Lance, I feel like his upside obviously is huge. And if he can be better than Garoppolo in his second season, I think that's definitely possible. The Niners have a chance to win the Super Bowl, or at least get there, and you can hedge because the NFC is so weak. But the Bengals in 19-1 is insane to me. I think that's like they're the second best team in the NFL, in my opinion. Like you said, that all they needed was offensive line help. They added 3 offensive linemen, 3 really good offensive linemen. So they're going to have much better blocking. In fact, you can make an argument that they have a top 5 offensive line now if all those guys gel together. I'd say maybe it takes them a little bit to gel, but I think by the end of the year, they'll have it. Joe Burrow will be in his 3rd season. He's going to be better. And remember, he had a rough start to his season last year. Like, he finished like great. He was amazing at the end. But he had a game in week 2 where he threw 3 interceptions in a row against the Bears and a loss. He just wasn't 100% yet coming off that knee injury. And eventually he got there. And now he's going to be a year removed from that. You have Jamar Chase with experience now. Like, he was a rookie last year. Like, look what he did as a rookie. Like, now he's going to have experience. You still have T. Higgins. You still have Tyler Boyd. And the defense is pretty good. I mean, outside of number 2 cornerback, and maybe with Cam Taylor-Britt or Daxton Hill, you're going to have that option. So, yeah, Bengals 19-1 is my favorite here. I guess followed by the Broncos, then the Chargers, then the Niners. But like I said, I love all these picks.
Yeah, this is one. If you're throwing at a dartboard, you're like, I like all of them. I can't decide. I probably go with the Bengals, but there's no wrong answer here. They all seem good. They all should be in the playoffs. They all should be in the running for everything. And the Broncos, their long odds surprised me. I'm really surprised people haven't caught on to them more. I get it. They might be the 3rd best team in their division on paper, but just listen to this start of the season for them, right? These are their first 8 games, so half the season. They play the Seahawks, Texans, 49ers, Raiders, Colts, Chargers, Jets, and Jaguars. So, I mean, there are a couple tough teams in there. The Chargers and Raiders, divisional opponents. The 49ers, that's going to be a tough one because if Trey Lance pans out, that team is just stacked and similar to the Broncos. But aside from those, I think that they're going to be in pretty good shape to win most of those. And the game against the Colts is at home, so they could start 5-3, or if they win one of the tough games, they go 6-2. People are going to be like, oh, Russell Wilson really was the answer here. And yeah, I know some people might be scared off by that Seahawks versus Broncos game in week 1 because it's an emotional game for Wilson. He might not be quite ready for it with his new offense, but still, he gets 2 easier looking opponents the first 2 weeks to work out the kinks. And I think that's going to pay dividends for them.
Yeah, I was thinking about that record when you're like rattling off the teams. I thought of 6-2, and like, yeah, the Colts game doesn't scare me. I'm not a big fan of the Colts at all. So they're actually in this next group. The Cowboys are 22-1, as are the Ravens. The Colts are 24-1, and both the Browns and Eagles are 25-1. I like two teams here, but I love one team. So I'm curious to see if we agree here.
Yeah, there are also 2 teams that I like. They
Nice.
both hail from the AFC North. And let me get to the teams I don't like first. Like Cowboys, they've lost too many pieces on offense. I don't think they're going to be as competitive. They're helped by the weakness of the NFC, but not that much. I think the Eagles might beat them in the divisional race. I like the Eagles to an extent too, but I'm not sure I'm willing to bet Jalen Hurts to win a Super Bowl just yet. And the Colts, I like Matt Ryan. I like what they did. I think they can win the division, but I'm not willing to bet them to win a Super Bowl when they can't even beat the Jaguars when they need to. The other 2 teams, the AFC North teams, I think are solid bets. The Ravens did a lot to upgrade their roster during the draft. I mean, they always have a good draft, but this year I thought they did especially well. I love Tyler Linderbaum. They needed an upgrade at center. That was huge to get him. Lamar Jackson's going to be healthy. I think people forget how much time he missed last year because Tyler Huntley did a solid job as a backup. But by the end of the year, he just wasn't as effective and was never as effective as Lamar Jackson would be. I know that they don't have a ton of receiving talent because they traded Hollywood Brown away. But they still have Rashad Bateman and Mark Andrews and a few different guys on that roster that could make an impact. So as long as their running game is healthy, I think that they're going to be in good shape to make a run. And they had so many injuries last year. It was absurd. Like they lost just so many games to injury. I think they had 25 players on IR at one point. So I think they'll be better off with all these guys healthy, and getting Marcus Williams to upgrade that secondary too will help. And then the Browns, I mean, this is a pretty complete roster. There's not much to complain about. I wasn't happy that they got rid of J.C. Treader at center. They have a recent 5th-round pick, Nick Harris, who's going to take over there, though. So I'm nitpicking at that point. I mean, the rest of their roster is stacked, and the only question that they're dealing with is Deshaun Watson going to play the whole season? And if not, are they going to be able to stay afloat? I think the answer is he's not going to play the whole season. Given the way the Browns have structured Watson's contract, he's only due like $1 million this year. Leads me to believe that they expect the NFL to suspend him for some amount of time. I don't know how much that's going to be. I don't know how much Watson's going to be able to negotiate off of that too by arguing, hey, I didn't play last year while this was ongoing. It's going to be a messy situation from that point. But even if he doesn't play, I know Baker Mayfield's there. I don't think he plays, but Jacoby Brissett can keep them afloat. I mean, he can go 3-3 in their first 6 games, which don't look that difficult. I looked at them at one point and I was like, oh, the Browns are in pretty good shape here. Yeah, they play the Panthers, Jets, Steelers, Falcons, Chargers, and Patriots. So there are a few losses in there if Watson doesn't play, but I think if you go 3-3 and Watson catches fire, they make the playoffs pretty easily. So I like the Browns at 25-1. I might wait on them though, because if Watson is suspended, I think their price will change. I don't know if this is accounting for it, but I think we could go to maybe 30-1 if Watson's out 6 weeks, because I think the public will sour on the idea of betting Cleveland with a backup quarterback. But their roster is really good, and people were high on them the last couple of years, but or at least 2 of the last 3, and they just didn't deliver last year because Mayfield was so hurt and playing through it. And he really got a raw end of this deal. But yeah, anyway, long story short, the Browns, I think, are a good bet here.
Yeah, I love the Browns here. It seems like this is kind of hedging either way. You know, if it's announced that Deshaun Watson is not going to be suspended, I think you're going to see this line drop to 18 to 20-1, something like that, maybe even lower. If Watson's suspended, we'll see how long he's going to be suspended. If he's suspended for half the season, then you're looking at probably 35-40-1, maybe even worse, because they're gonna have Jacoby Brissett, which is I think okay. You made a good point where they have a good schedule, and Brissett has done a good job when surrounded with a good supporting cast in the past. So I think they can go 3-3 in the first 6 games based on what you read off in that schedule, maybe even 4-2. I love Cleveland's roster overall. Their defense seems really good. You mentioned the offensive line. It's one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. I was not a fan of the Treader release either, but then I read that they really like Nick Harris a lot, their new center. So who knows? I mean, they see this guy in practice every day. So if you can fill in and be like 90% of what Treader was at a cheaper price, it's going to look pretty good. So I think the Browns are a team that I'm going to bet eventually. Like maybe I'm gonna see if we can find like a 30-1 or something, because that's gonna be closer to what the number is when Watson suspensions announced and if he's suspended for like 6+ games. The only way you're really screwed here is if they suspend Watson for the whole year. Then your bet is toast. But I don't think that's going to happen because he missed all of last year. So the Browns are the team I love. The 2 teams I like, you mentioned the Ravens. We'll see what happens with Ronnie Stanley. That's a big deal. He hasn't been healthy the past 2 years. If he's healthy, that's going to be huge for Lamar Jackson, because Jackson hasn't had good pass protection the past 2 seasons. We saw what Jackson was like when he had that elite pass protection in 2019. He won the MVP that year. He could be almost back to that level if they have a great offensive line. They lost Marquise Brown. The receiving core is an issue, I think. They have Rashad Bateman. Maybe he makes a big leap, and they still have Mark Andrews. So it's not like the worst group of players to throw to. And their defense is going to be better, you said, with Marcus Williams. They brought back Calais Campbell. Overall, I think their defense is going to be really good. So I like the Ravens. And the Eagles, I think they're the best team in the division. They play in a weak conference. They signed James Bradbury, so they have two elite cornerbacks. It's going to be tough to throw on them. They get Brandon Graham back from injury, which is huge. I mean, he got hurt in week 2 last year, and their defensive line kind of fell apart. Having him back, I think, is going to be enormous. And their offensive line is still really good, and they have AJ Brown now. So I think AJ Brown's going to help out Jalen Hurts a lot. I'm not the biggest Hurts fan, but I think he's not that bad. Like he can make stuff happen on the ground. And now that he has Devontae Smith and AJ Brown plus Dallas Goedert, I think that's a really good receiving core. So I like the Eagles 25-1. I'm not crazy about them, but I think I would consider betting it.
Yeah, if we were able to get a 30-1 on the Eagles, I would be very into that, because I think that they're the best team in their division. I agree with you. And really, again, like I said, the only thing holding me back on them is Jalen Hurts. Like, I like him. I think he's accurate. He obviously moves well with his legs, and he can generate rushing yards, and that's huge. And my question is just, how dynamic can he be with the arm? Like, is he an electric playmaker with the arm, or is he just a great distributor, which we've seen? And maybe it helps having a yard after the catch guy like AJ Brown around. So this team could definitely pan out. I just kind of want to wait and see where things go. But them getting James Bradbury was huge, because he's a big physical dude, and Darius Slay plays that same type of style at times. So I just feel like it's going to be really hard to throw on the Eagles now because of that. Like they're going to be fun to watch, I would assume, unless one of them falls off precipitously. And I don't think it'll be Bradbury, because he's on a 1-year prove-it deal.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, he's going to be trying hard. I like the Eagles before Bradbury, and now I like them even more. They should be their odds should be better than Dallas's. Dallas is pretty overrated. Let's get to the 30s here. The Dolphins are 30 to 1. Titans are 33 to 1. The Raiders are 36 to 1, and the Cardinals at 37.5 to 1. Do you like any of these teams?
Not particularly. I mean, you could sell me a little bit on the Dolphins upgraded their supporting cast, but I think that takes time to mesh. And just I like Tua Tagovailoa a lot as a prospect, but he hasn't shown through 2 NFL seasons that he can elevate a team. I think best case scenario is he shows that he can manage a team, not make mistakes, and get the ball downfield this season. But I don't think that they're good enough to compete with the cream of the crop in the AFC. Feel the same way about the Titans. Then the Raiders are probably the one. If you're like, you have to bet one from this group, I'd go with the Raiders just because they made the playoffs last year and they added Devontae Adams. I know they have other holes on their defense and they're going through a coaching change and all that jazz. But I think that they could do a good job. I'm just not sold on their blocking. I mean, that's a common theme with them. They blew up their offensive line last year. We were like, why did they do that? Like, if they had better offensive line last year, they would have been in better shape. So they have that problem. They still have some defensive issues, though. They added Rocky Sin and signed Chandler Jones. So I think they'll be in better shape there. But I don't see them winning the AFC. It's just too stacked right now. And then the Cardinals, I mean, we were right about them being good out of the chute last year. They looked really strong. And then they just totally fell apart as the season went along. They were old. Now they're lost a lot of players. They've added Marquise Brown, but that's really the only major acquisition they made. They also signed Jeff Gladney, who unfortunately died in a car accident this weekend. Such sad news. He was getting a redemption chance with the Cardinals. And so that was a very sad story. But if you just look at the Cardinals, they're not the same roster they were last year, and they've gotten worse. So there's no reason to bet them.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's tough with the Cardinals. With what happened, that might affect them. We don't know. I mean, who knows how well the players knew Gladney because he was new, but that could have an effect on them as well. I'm not touching the Cardinals. I'm not touching the Titans. The Dolphins and the Raiders are the two teams I would consider. I saw that someone told me the Raiders are 50 to 1, and it was funny because a few weeks ago I was at a party and people were coming up to me saying, "Oh, are you betting the Raiders 50 to 1?" Like I had like 3 people like asking me that. I'm like, what is going on here? Like I'm not in Las Vegas or Oakland or anything. Like I don't know. People like love the Raiders for some reason. I mean, I think the Raiders are a good team. I worry about their offensive line, like you said. And that would get me to the Dolphins as the best team in this group because out of all 4 of these teams, they have the best offensive line. They signed Teron Armstead, Connor Williams. Eichenberg is going to be, I think, better in his second year at right tackle. They have Robert Hunt. He's going to be a better guard this year. Question at center, but I think that's their weakest link. And they obviously have Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. Their defense is going to be better with Melvin Ingram rushing the quarterback. So I like the Dolphins. What worries me is first 2 things. One is Tua's health. He's never been able to stay healthy. The past 3 years, he just hasn't finished the season or he hasn't completed a full season. And 2, their expectations are pretty high. Although this number is kind of surprising. I thought with all the buzz they got this offseason, I thought we were going to see it like a 20 to 1 or 18 to 1 on the Dolphins. 31 to 1 says like people aren't as high on them, which is surprising. I don't know if that's true or not, but I think if expectations are high, they're not going to meet them. But if expectations are low, suddenly I think they're more interesting. So if I had to bet one of these teams, it would be the Dolphins.
I kind of wonder if the Dolphins number is a trap number because I've seen a lot of people, the public, and like people like who, when I wrote Power Rankings a month or so ago, they were like, "Hey, like, why are the Dolphins so low?" And I had them like, I don't remember exactly where I had them. I probably had them too low, but it wasn't like they were like, "Oh, the Dolphins need to be a top 10 team. They're going to be great this year." So I wonder if the sports books are looking at the Dolphins and looking at Tua Tagovailoa and looking at the fans swooning over them and saying, "Hey, we can like put this at a number that we get a lot of money on the Dolphins, and the odds of them winning the Super Bowl aren't great because even if Tua takes a massive step forward, right, he still would have to probably outduel Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen in some order during the playoffs." And if not one of those quarterbacks, a team that has beaten one of those quarterbacks. So it's kind of like you can't break everything down to quarterbacks because Tua's got a much better supporting cast this year. But yeah, that's what scares me away. Is it feels like a trap. Maybe it's not, but yeah, I'm not in on the Dolphins. Also, while you were talking, I got dive bombed by a fly. I don't know
I
if you
saw
noticed
it.
it landed right on my forehead. I managed to get it. It was terrifying, though. I did everything in my power not to scream.
Oh, so you killed it then? You
I
did?
did. Yeah, I did get
Okay.
it, thankfully.
You're like Daniel-san in Karate Kid.
Yep.
I don't think I've ever done that with a fly, so that's pretty impressive. Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think you're right. The Dolphins might be a trap team here. I think it's a great point. I mean, I was wondering why this number was so high. And I thought people loved the Dolphins, and I saw this. I'm like, do people not love the Dolphins? But yeah, I think you're right. I think this is a total trap. Not the first time Vegas is going to be trapping the public. All right, this is the penultimate group. There are only 3 teams in this group because every other team is 100-1 or higher. So we have the Saints at 45-1, we have the Vikings at 45-1, and the Patriots are 50-1. So are you going to bet any of these 3 teams?
I don't know if I'm actually going to bet any of them, but I'm starting to come around on the Vikings. It's kind of weird. I just keep looking at their roster and it looks decent to me. Like, I don't know if it's going to be a championship roster, but you have to take into account how weak the NFC is this year. I mean, there are like 3 top teams. The 49ers look pretty good. Then you'll have the winner of the NFC East. But those last 2 wild card spots, I think, could be anyone. And say the Packers struggle without Devontae Adams or Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, who's going to win that division? I mean, you look at it, it's probably the Vikings. You can maybe make the case that the Lions could do it, but I don't know. I just look at this defense. I think it's going to be better than it was last year. They added some key pieces on that defensive side of the ball. Zadarius Smith and Jordan Hicks have both been productive players in recent years. I know Smith was hurt last year, but if he can stay healthy, him and Daniil Hunter, it's a good pass rushing duo, and they have a pretty solid defensive line too, led by Dalvin Tomlinson. I love Lewis Seen, and I think Andrew Booth will help them at cornerback. Do they have a number 1 cornerback? That I'm not sure about, so that's why I'm not positive I'm going to bet this team. But I think their offense is going to be good enough to get the job done. They don't have a great offensive line. They don't have like a deep stable of weapons, but they have Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson. And Adam Thielen's still there. I know he's starting to slow down a little bit because he's 31, and that just naturally happens after a certain point in the NFL. But that's enough to get by on offense. And Kirk Cousins is not a great quarterback, but he's gotten better in big spots in recent years. So I think they can make the playoffs. So if you're getting a playoff team at 45-1, I might sign up for that. Maybe he gets hot at the right time, pulls a Joe Flacco, and gets his team to the Super Bowl. Wouldn't bet on it overly, but I don't mind it. I like the Patriots a lot too, but I'm concerned enough with they didn't add much to their team. They had a pretty poor draft, and no one really knows what they're doing with their coaching staff. It's pretty thinned out. I'm not overly worried about the coaching staff like some people are, because I know Matt Patricia and Joe Judge failed as head coaches, but they were good assistants. So, moving from defense to offense or special teams to offense is kind of scary a little bit, especially when you're talking about quarterback coach and offensive line coach positions that they seem to be moving into. But it's Bill Belichick. He's going to figure out a way to make that work. I just am not big on betting the Patriots even at this number because the AFC is so stacked. I just can't see it happening. They don't have enough depth, in my opinion.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say I think the Patriots are the best team in this grouping. They still have, even though they lost Shaq Mason, they still, I believe they have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. We'll see what happens with Cole Strange, but I think otherwise their offensive line is really good. They lost J.C. Jackson. You got to trust Bill Belichick to find some good cornerbacks to fill in, right? So I think their defense is still going to be good. They had, I believe, the number 5 pressure rate in the NFL last year with Matthew Judon. I don't see why that would change. And then you have Mac Jones, who's going to be in his second year now. Maybe he has a sophomore slump. Maybe teams figure him out because they have film on him now. Like, he could regress a little bit before bouncing back next year. Like, that could definitely happen. But there is also a chance that he improves as well in his second year now that he's experienced, and he also has Devontae Parker to throw to. So I think I would bet the Patriots in this group. I don't think I'm going. I don't know if I will, but if I had to bet one of them, I would. You make some good points about the Vikings. They definitely have some upside. They added Zadarius Smith, like you said, and they had the number 2 pressure rate last year, so their pass rush is going to be even better. But I think what it comes down to is Kirk Cousins behind a mediocre offensive line. And that just doesn't sound great to me. I like you mentioned Joe Flacco, which is a good point. If Flacco can win the Super Bowl, anyone can. I think, although Flacco fans might hate me for that, but I think Flacco and Cousins are pretty comparable. So yeah, I mean, I guess it could happen. I just don't know. I mean, I don't think Minnesota's defense is on par with what Baltimore had in 2012.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And that's why I'm probably not going to bet them. If they were at like 55-1, I'd probably look at that and be like, I'll take a chance on that because they're one Aaron Rodgers injury away from being the NFC North favorite. So I guess that's how I look at it. It may not be the best way to look at it, but I like your points on the Patriots too. They have a great offensive line, and Cole Strange was a reach in the draft, but I still think he's going to be a good player. Like it's almost like a Travis Frederick type situation. Like that would be the best case scenario for the Patriots if they took him and he turns out to be Travis Frederick. But we were all like, oh, they reached for Travis Frederick, and then you look back and you're like, well, he was a solid prospect. They just took him earlier than anyone thought. So I think Strange ends up being a good starter. So that offense looks complete. I'm just not sure, like, if they get into a shootout, if their defense, because the weakness is at corner. That's the thing. You got Malcolm Butler, Terrence Mitchell, Jalen Mills, and a couple of short rookies that they drafted earlier than people thought they would because Belichick loves doing that. But maybe it works out. But if you're getting into a shootout with Patrick Mahomes versus Mac Jones, I'd probably take Patrick Mahomes just at this point, thinking that way. But 50-1 odds on the Patriots. I definitely don't hate him. I don't think I'm ready to bet him like you, though. I know you said you're not probably going to bet him either, but yeah, this group has upside, but I'm not intrigued by betting anything, I don't think.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance to make the playoffs, but you're right. I mean, if they had to get into a shootout with Mahomes or Justin Herbert or Joe Burrow or Josh Allen or Russell Wilson, this is crazy. Like if they're in the NFC, I think I would bet them. But in the AFC, it's so tough. I mean, that conference is stacked. I can't wait to watch it. All right. We get to this last group, and there are a lot of teams. These teams are all 100-1 or better. And like I said in the lead into the show, I bet one of these teams today. I'm not counting the Jaguars. So we like the Jaguars speculatively back in February because they had the most cap space in the NFL, plus Trevor Lawrence, plus new coaching staff. And then they squandered free agency. So I don't like the Jaguars anymore. I would not recommend it. But I did bet one of these teams. I actually spoke to Charlie Campbell on the phone a couple of days ago. It was his birthday. And we were both gushing about this team. We love this team. We think one of these teams is going to win at least 10 games. So I'm curious to hear who you like. I actually love one team here, and I like another. So let's read them off. Redskins 100-1, Steelers 100-1, Seahawks 115-1, Jets 130-1, Giants 135-1, Bears 145-1, the Jaguars and Lions are 165-1, the Panthers 175-1, Falcons 250-1, and the Texans bring up the rear at 300-1. So who do you like here?
First, I want to chastise myself for a bad take I had on the podcast when I convinced us to take the Jaguars. It was like, we're not going to get them at a better price than 125-1. What if they have great free agency? They're going to move to like 50-1, maybe even 30. Nope. Nope, they did not. They moved the other way. So now we got some dead money tickets out there, but hey, that happens. There are 3 teams of this bunch that I think you and Charlie could be looking at. One is the Steelers, one is the Giants, and one is the Panthers. And I'm trying to decide which one it is. The problem is these teams all have quarterback questions. So I'm just trying to figure out which one you're least afraid of. I'm going to go with the Panthers. Is it the Panthers? Is that the team?
So I said I love one team and I like one team. The Panthers are the team I like. And
okay.
Let me say quickly why. I like their team overall. I like their pass rush is really good. They really bolstered their offensive line. And they have DJ Moore. They have Christian McCaffrey, who barely played the past 2 years. If he stays healthy, that's a completely different team. Right now, though, they have Sam Darnold, the quarterback, and he's not going to win the Super Bowl, but they could trade for Baker Mayfield. And if they do, this number is going to plummet to like 50-1, maybe 45-1. And if that's the case, I want to be on board with the Panthers. So I'm going to bet the Panthers speculatively and just going to cry myself to sleep when they don't trade for Mayfield and they start Darnold.
I'm in the very same boat as you because you look at the roster outside of quarterback there, it is strong. They've done a lot to their offensive line. They drafted Ike Ekwonu. That's the big move. But they signed Bradley Bozeman and Austin Corbett to upgrade the interior. And that is a massive difference maker. I mean, they've had trouble at center for a while, and guard has been a problem for them too. So I love that they have that. I think that their depth is much better now. I mean, they were starting Cameron Irving at left tackle last year. Like, oh my goodness. I'm glad he's a swing tackle now. And their defense is really strong. Like you said, great pass rush there. And they've added a lot of pieces. They got Matt Ioannidis, which I think is going to be huge for them. He was great for Washington as a pass rusher. And I think he might have played for Matt Rule at Temple. I don't know if their paths intersected, but I think they did. So my only concern with the team is the quarterback and the head coach. But I think they're going to end up with Baker Mayfield. It would stun me if they don't. Where else is he going to go? It's not like keeping him in Cleveland is going to do anything. So I'm glad we're in step on the Panthers there. Now I got to figure out which is the team you like. Okay. Oh, man. Like, I know you're not big on Kenny Pickett because of his hand size and that weather. So are you back on the Giants here?
No. I'm not going to go with Daniel Jones again.
That's what I was afraid of. Okay. So is it the Steelers then?
It's not. I still worry about their offensive line. Maybe it's not even Kenny Pickett. Maybe it's Trubisky, and maybe he salvages his career with good coaching. I don't think it's a lock that Pickett starts. And if it's Trubisky, I suddenly would have more interest because he has experience. Like, a rookie quarterback's not going to win the Super Bowl, especially in that conference. But if it's Trubisky and he lives up to expectations, like, suddenly the Steelers look pretty good at 100-1. But I'm not going to bet them.
Okay, so that means is it the Seahawks then? That was the wild card team.
It's not. It's not the Seahawks either. I don't know. I think most people are going to be shocked when I say this. The team.
Is it the Jets?
It's not the Jets. No.
So it's the Lions.
It's the Lions. Yeah. Charlie and I both agree that the Lions are going to win 10 plus games this year. If we just look at their roster, it's so good. I know, like, people are going to look at Jared Goff and be like, okay, Jared Goff sucks, but you got the Rams to the Super Bowl. Like, people forget that. Like, he can be good when his supporting cast is really good, and his supporting cast is unbelievable. I think they had Amon-Ra St. Brown catch 8 passes or more in his, I think, final 6 games last year, and then they added DJ Chark. And they have Jameson Williams and TJ Hawkinson. We'll see what happens with Williams. They said they're not going to rush him. And I think that's okay because they still have Chark, Hawkinson, and St. Brown. In the second half of the year, though, and I think when Williams gets going, like, those are 4 really talented targets for Jared Goff to throw to. And then he has a good running game with DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. His offensive line, I think you can argue, is top 5, maybe. I mean, last year, Taylor Decker was out for half the year. Frank Ragnow only played 3 or 4 games. They're going to have those guys back. You have Jonah Jackson, who's was really good last year at guard. He's going to be better. And Penei Sewell, who had a rough start to his rookie year, and he got really good at the end of the year. So their offensive line is stacked. I think you can make, like I said, I think top 5, maybe even top 3 offensive line in the NFL. Their defense is a question mark at linebacker, but elsewhere, I think it's decent. I think they added Agent Hutchinson to improve their pass rush. And at cornerback, they get Jeff Okudah back. Now, Okudah was terrible in his rookie year, but he was really good in training camp last year. There was a lot of excitement for him, and then he got hurt in week 1, and we never saw him at all. So now he's going to be back. So I think they have an explosive offense. They have an improved defense. I like Dan Campbell. It just feels like the Lions, and they play in such a weak division, or rather conference. And they played the Packers in the NFC North, but outside of that, they the Vikings and the Bears. I feel like they're going to beat the Bears twice, and they're going to at least split with the Vikings. And I think they could challenge the Packers, which they did back in Week 18 last year. They were leading the Packers when the Packers had their starters on the field, and the Packers pulled their starters. Remember, they led 10-0 at the Rams. They destroyed Arizona late in the year, and I think that surprised a lot of people. But if you kind of think about it, like, that's when they got their offensive line going. That's when Sewell started playing better. Decker was back. St. Brown was getting better. I think it was like a harbinger of things to come. And I think this team is going to be really good this year. I think they're going to shock a lot of people. And it wouldn't surprise me if they win 11 games, make the playoffs, and get to the second or third round.
Yeah, I love Dan Campbell, so I am on board with this. Actually, 100%. We were talking in a Sporting News football meeting recently. By recently, I mean hours ago. It was today about the Lions' offensive line, and we consensus agreed it was at least top 10. And then the argument was like, all right, well, who's in front of them type deal. We didn't get into the nitty gritty there because I usually take up too much time talking about offensive lines, so they have to contain me. But I agree with you. I think that offense is pretty complete. Like, my one concern is, when is Jameson Williams going to play? But I mean, they have Shark and Amon-Ra St. Brown and TJ Hawkinson, like you said. So 3 good targets there. And Josh Reynolds was good last year. And he had some chemistry with Jared Goff. So he can be a good replacement for Williams in that time. Doesn't bring the same skill set or upside. But I mean, that unit looks great. And Frank Ragnow missing time last year is massive because he is like the epitome of what Dan Campbell wants in a player. He played through a fractured larynx once, I think, which is, or maybe didn't play through it, but he dealt with it and was back very shortly after that. And I was just like, it sounds like the worst injury ever. Like, that's just a broken throat. Like, that's how they described it. You don't hear that injury. Like,
yeah.
So just really bizarre stuff. And I was looking at their defense, and like, that was my area of concern. I was like, in looking at it, I'm like, their defense isn't that great, right? But the more you look at it, the more you see the pieces there. I mean, they don't have any true star players there. Hutchinson could maybe become one, but they have a lot of really solid players. Like, that unit could be like a sneaky top 15, top 12 type unit, the type you need to get into the playoffs when you have a good offense. And Dan Campbell's just such a good coach that I trust he'll get the most out of all of his players, Aiden Hutchinson included. And one of the sneaky good moves they made, Mike Hughes was great last year for the Chiefs. They acquired him from the Vikings, he was a 4 first-round pick, didn't quite pan out. He developed really well for the Chiefs. He graded out really high in PFF's coverage grade rankings. And now he's there to serve as a corner along with Amani Oruwariye and Jeff Okuda. So they have 3 corners. They have Ifeatu Melifonwu, who was a 3rd-round pick. So they're deeper at corner than you realize. Do they have true stars on defense? No, but they're pretty good. So I'm going to get on board with you with this. I just like rooting for Dan Campbell. And if I like the Vikings for being potentially, they could get to the top of the division if this happens with the Packers, you can like the Lions for the same reasons. They have the concerns at quarterback, but they have pretty good depth all around. And the difference between the Vikings and the Lions is we know the Lions have good coaching. We assume the Vikings do too. I like Kevin O'Connell a lot, but Campbell's been proven. So I like them. They're probably one of my favorites. I like the Panthers a lot too for the reasons we discussed. And I'm in on the Steelers just because, I'm not a fan of their quarterback situation, but hey, the rest of that roster looks pretty good. So if we're talking 100-1 here, I might put a really small bet on them just because, hey, they're if they were in the NFC, we'd be talking about them as like a probably 30-1 team and just saying, is Mitch Trubisky going to get the job done? That's just how imbalanced it is this year. You have a really good team at 100-1 odds because of that.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's insane how good the AFC is. I'm glad you're on board with the Lions. They just seem like I think if people looked at this roster honestly and didn't think they didn't remember how bad the Lions have been in the past couple of years. I think they'd look at this number and say, they should be 50-1 or 45-1 or something like that. Like, Jared Goff is still problematic. Like, I don't love him. Like I said, their linebacking core is a weakness. But outside of that, I think they have a really good talented roster. And like I said, Jared Goff has gotten to the Super Bowl before, so it can happen again. And like Charlie was, I bring up Charlie. He was talking to one of his contacts who got to watch the Lions recently in practice, and this contact didn't say anything about the Lions last year, but he was really impressed with how they looked in practice so far. Not that means all that much, but it's still encouraging, as because I already like the Lions to begin with. So 165-1. I bet it this morning. It's an extreme long shot, but at the very least. Well, I shouldn't say at the very least, but I think there's a decent chance that if you bet this, you could probably hedge it at some point.
Yeah, and I'm more willing to take chances on NFC teams this year just because of how weak that conference is. Like, you look at it and you're thinking to yourself, all right, well, one team's coming out of the East. Then you look at the South and you're like, all right, well, unless the Panthers get their act together, the Buccaneers are the only one there. The West looks pretty good with the 49ers and Rams, but then there's 3 other playoff spots up for grabs. You assume the Packers take one of them. So that leaves 2 wide open spots for the wild card race. And these teams might not end up having pretty records because if they do poorly against the AFC interconference, It won't be pretty, but I mean the Lions are among that second tier of teams that I think could get into the playoffs. Like you're looking at the Lions, Panthers, Vikings. If the Cardinals can stave off the regression we're projecting, I think those are like the 4 teams that are going to compete for those spots. So maybe one of the NFC East teams also gets into the mix there, but I think the Lions have a great chance of winning like 10 games, like you said. They're going to surprise people. I think the over under talk on them is like 6.5. There's a reason a lot of people are betting the over there. Like people like the Lions for good reason.
Yeah, there's sharp money on the over for the Lions. It's juice to the over. So yeah, I'm just going to bet the over for that. I'm going to bet them to make the playoffs. So yeah, I'm all in on the Lions this year. It feels weird. Like I would not have said that a year ago. Obviously, they were terrible last year. I actually in my season previews last year, I projected them to go 1-16. I think they ended up winning 3 games. Campbell got the most out of them, and they crushed Arizona, like I said at the end of the year. And yeah, I think you're right. I mean, they're going to surprise people. And, I just answered a question about when season preview is going to start. I actually wrote about the Lions 2 days ago, and I think I have them 10-7 or 11-6. Like, I think they're my dark horse surprise team this year.
Yeah, I can see it. And looking at the schedule, like you said, it's not that tough. Like, yeah, they play the Bills, they play the Patriots, they play the Packers. Outside of that, though, so long as they survive their division games, they're going to be in pretty decent shape to get to at least above 500. And I just love Dan Campbell. He just gets so much out of his players. And this is just going to inspire me more to dress up for him for our Halloween show.
Nice.
And, if the Lions are at that point dead in the water somehow, I'll do zombie Dan Campbell or something. We'll figure it out. But, yeah, it's fun to root for the Lions, too. Like, Dan Campbell's just a coach that you want to see succeed because he's a wacky dude. He's just a wacky dude.
Yeah, I remember calling him PC head coach back in the day because he looks like PC principal from South Park.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you're on board with the Lions as well. So we have the trifecta. You, Charlie, and I are on board with the Lions. So I'm glad you didn't guess the Texans or Falcons either because they're absolutely terrible.
I knew I was hedging my own bets on the Lions. I'm like, I might be the Lions, but I'm like, no, you're too high on the Lions. Don't let people think you're that high on the Lions. But now I'm glad because I'm always going to be high on the Lions with Campbell there.
Nice. All right, that's about it. Do you have anything to plug?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Kamenker. I will tweet out my picks for betting things throughout the next few weeks, just till we get to NFL season. I've been doing all sorts of things, golf, IndyCar. I actually picked the winner of the Indianapolis 500, which was nice. I will probably pick some finals games, though I might not tweet them because I don't want to jinx my Celtics in the NBA finals. So I promise I'll tweet some stuff as the USFL season wraps up too. So yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Kamenker. Check out sportingnews.com. We'll have a ton of NFL offseason content coming up. We're planning our budget. We're planning what we're going to write about. So all your sporting needs, you can check out that website and just follow me. If you got any questions, shoot them my way. I'll try to answer them as best as I can.
Awesome. Please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description for the merch store. I'm at walterfootball.com. We just updated our 2023 NFL mock drafts. We updated our fantasy rankings. We have fantasy sleepers, busts. Like I said, season previews start in about 2 weeks. We have an NBA mock draft as well, which I'm going to update soon, maybe tonight or tomorrow. Depends on what's going on with my son, who was up every 2 hours last night. So hopefully that doesn't happen again. But yeah, it's cool that we agreed on most of the teams, and yeah, go Lions.
Go Lions indeed.
All right, I'll talk to you next week.
All right, sounds good.